CPR program has contributed to the realization of UNCRPD Article 19 and SDG Article 10 and 11. So Article 19 is on independent living. Article on time we talk about SDG 10 is reducing inequalities, and Goal 11 is sustainable cities and communities. So for those of us that are in the room, if we spend the next 7 to 10 minutes on this topic in relation to examples of how our own CPR programs, the CBID programs, has contributed to the realization of Article 19 of the UNCRPD, or SDG 10 and SDG 10 and 11. So if I could make a start and brief on this, when we look at the aspect of Article 19, and when we talk about the realization of Article 19 in terms of independent living, a few things come to mind. And some of these big line items in terms of there's a lot of concentration, and there's a lot of take, and there's a lot in terms of the spaces. When we talk about accessibility, there's a lot in terms of what's happening in the spaces. When we talk about non-discrimination, there's a lot that is happening, especially here in PG, and we're pushing it across the region. There's some traction in that in relation to social protection. I guess in terms of the realization and the programs that have been contributed by OPDs, especially here in PG that I'm aware of, I know some more. It's been the same, and I know that the OPDs across the region are supporting each other in this aspect. It's mainly in relation to support services, the support to their members, to enable independent living within the community setting, supporting the families so that persons with disability are better supported in terms of choosing where they stay and choosing who they stay with, and at least giving some traction towards that aspect. That aspect. When you look at SDG 10, I'm going to talk about reducing inequalities, and what has the OPDs done within its programs. This is often the core of most OPDs. It's not about reducing inequalities, but eradicating and removing inequalities. And we've always provided recommendations or solutions or pathways on what inclusion should look like through a disability lens, through a disability landscape. When we look at SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, here is when we look at assistive technology, when we look at assistive devices that is needed by persons with disability to ensure that they are included in the community. This is where the 6 preconditions becomes critical and crucial, especially when we talk about sustainability. And then how does the preconditions make its way in terms of policies and legislation to ensure that it becomes part of that policy and legislative frameworks at national level. And this is something that is crucial to ensure that there is always that support system that is then provided. We see what else could you program to? I guess the program has continued to strengthen, whereby it can show in what shape, form it should be in, so that it is not tokenistic. And if I give an example of this, is when we look at down to community level in terms of rehabilitation, especially after disaster, and look at rehabilitating and rebuilding schools, accessibility is crucial, so that way not only does the school become accessible for during times of disaster as shelters, but in normal times it can be used when students by students with disability to actually enter into their educational framework, especially in the communities. because most of the legislative policies often stick within the urban settings. And as you go further out, it starts to diminish. I will stop here and probably ask Angie and Sabara if there's inclusion, and we can start with Angie. Thank you, Angie. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Good morning, everyone. Very interesting dialogue topic indeed. Looking at Article 19 of the UNCRPD, Josh has really framed that well. It's basically 3 areas about choice, access to services, and support services. So, not repeating what he has shared already, I guess living independently and being included in the community means a lot to us also as persons with disabilities. What services exist in the community? Are we able to choose as women with disabilities where we want to live, with whom we want to live? I know in the Pacific, when we say living independently and being included in the community, often the first thing that comes to the minds of people generally is, you already have a disability. Do you really want to live independently? But that is not the focus of this article. It is saying that yes, persons with disabilities will also have choices like any other person. So it's making our decision on an equal basis with others. So when we look at services that exist in the community, it has to be also accessible to persons with disabilities and their families. If we look at healthcare, for example, other health facilities meeting our demands, what is required of us. We have mainstream services and we have specific disability services. Are we able to access that? Then, as we know that faith-based organizations play a big role in the Pacific. Are our places of worship accessible to all? Then we come back and think about the marginalized group in our society, most of whom live in rural areas. These are persons with intellectual, psychosocial disabilities, persons who are deafblind. Where are they into accessing these services in the community? Do they have the support services that are available? Josh rightly pointed out there's a lot that in terms of social protection, in terms of improving accessibility, in terms of improved assistive devices. So I guess where we see good examples of good practices, OPDs have really advocated and created awareness on what this Article 19 should look like and the involvement of disabilities and their families to having to provide what we want. It's not like services, assistive devices just given to us just because it was given to someone free. So you just give it. It has to meet our needs. So it's the demand and the supply. We cannot be accepting things that is going to cause us more damage and making us conditions much worse. So I guess OPDs have played a great role, and I think CBID is a good model where we have OPDs, government service providers, and also institutions, maybe in the different sectors, education and all. It's all coming together to all make a difference in the lives of persons with disabilities. Maybe we'll just pass on to Savira if she wants to add.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie, and thank you, Joshua. In relation to the question asked around CBR program, I believe it's something that's not new. Over the years, we have conducting advocacy and awareness around the engagement of persons with disability within our communities, also ensuring that accessibility in all